Hi, and welcome to another Watch Geek video. Today, we'll be taking a look at two Spinnaker models side by side and compare them. They're the Spinnaker Fleuss and Spinnaker Croft. Just like all other Spinnaker watches, these two were named after historical figures. So Fleuss was named after a diving engineer, Henry Fleuss, who invented and patented a rebreather mask that supplied oxygen and collected CO2, giving divers up to 3 hours of dive time. The most impressive thing is that he did it in 1878. Croft, on the other hand, was named after Robert Croft, a U.S. Navy diving instructor who was the first person ever to free dive below 200 feet, reaching 212 feet or 64 meters in 1967, disproving the theory scientists had about 200 feet being a physiological limit for humans to dive by just holding their breath. Like that wasn't enough, a year later, in 1968, he went even deeper, reaching 240 feet or 73 meters, again by just holding his breath. So two very impressive gentlemen who obviously knew what they were doing in water. So do these two watches live up to their names? When it comes to water resistance, they most certainly do. Both are water resistant to 150 meters, a very vintage sounding depth rating that I liked on the Bradner and welcome here as well, as I find it refreshing in the world where desk divers boast with ratings measured in thousands of meters. Both watches are classically proportioned and have what one might consider a perfect size for a diver's watch of today, even though I would personally like it more if they were a few millimeters smaller. Although they're almost the same in size, Croft is actually slightly smaller. They both share the same diameter of just over 43 millimeters, but Croft has a shorter lug-to-lug of 50.7 compared to Fleuss's at 51.2. They weigh in almost the same at roughly 105 grams. Despite these measurements, Croft is the one who wears and feels larger on the wrist, and the reason for that is the fact that it's full 2 millimeters thicker at 15.2 versus Fleuss at 13.2 millimeters. This makes Fleuss better balanced and less top-heavy. So when it comes to comfort and having to wear one all day, Fleuss is the clear winner. The case shape is also very similar, but still different, with Croft having a classic Rolex Sea Dweller shape, while Fleuss has a bit more originality. The finishing on the case is almost identical, with sides and tops being brushed and separated with these polished bevels. The difference in finish quality is where Fleuss takes the lead, as all the transitions are sharp and very well executed, while Croft shows imperfections that are very visible once you get to macro levels. I personally prefer the case of the Fleuss because of the more original design and better quality of finishing. Crowns on both watches are big, easy to operate, and signed with the Spinnaker logo. The one on the Croft is flat, while the one on the Fleuss is rounded to go better with the rounded bezel insert. It's a small detail that I'm glad to see Spinnaker paid attention to instead of just slamming a generic crown. The bonus on this example of Croft is that the logo aligns perfectly when the crown is screwed in, making it the third Spinnaker I handled that happens to do that. Could it be that I'm just lucky? Probably, but it still makes you feel like you're handling a more expensive watch. When it comes to movements, they're both powered by entry-level Japanese movements, with Fleuss again taking a slight lead by using the Seiko NH35 that has both hacking and hand-winding, while Croft uses Miyota 8218 that has hand-winding only. Both movements beat at 21,600 bph and feature a quick set date, with Miyota adding the small seconds complication. Although it lacks hacking, Miyota wins a couple of points back by having a better finished movement compared to the very utilitarian Seiko. Being diver-inspired watches, both feature 120 click unidirectional bezels with roughly the same level of action, with Croft having a slightly better grip as it has a more traditional shape. The look is more traditional as well, as it comes with an aluminium insert and painted numerals with the loomed pip at 12 o'clock. Fleuss, on the other hand, has a 50 Fathoms inspired bezel with loomed markers that are underneath this domed acrylic, giving it a more interesting look. Despite this look, I prefer the Croft insert as I simply don't like completely loomed bezels, as they detract from basic time telling in the dark. Both watches come with sapphire crystals, with the Fleuss surprisingly having a modern, flat crystal, while Croft comes with this beveled crystal and the Cyclops for the date, giving it a vintage look while still retaining the legibility of a flat crystal. Then we move on to the dials, which are the real reason these watches got my attention. Both have a lot going on and are anything but plain. Fleuss has a black textured dial that resembles sandpaper and has applied markers filled with fake patina lume, which I'm usually not a fan of, but on this, it works well with the watch as it's more cream in color than aged. The logo is applied as well, and it's the same wonderful liquid metal looking logo that impressed me on the Bradner. The hands are sword-shaped and of the correct length, touching their designated markers, which is something I'm a huge fan of. Despite being detailed and interesting, this dial is nothing compared to the one on the Croft. It comes with the same texturing, but here it's combined with this color fading to almost gold in the middle, giving the dial incredible character. This is further emphasized with the gilt oversized markers in hands, with the hands having this wonderful linear brushing. Like that wasn't enough, the second subdial has concentric grooves in it to separate it from the main dial. The logo here is done in brown, so it blends with the dial, allowing you to enjoy this unique dial even more. When it comes to lume, there really is no comparison here. With its smaller lume area and cream color, Fleuss doesn't even come close to Croft. It's still readable when your eyes are accustomed to darkness, but when you see the explosion of lume on the Croft, you want to hide the Fleuss away so no one notices how weak it is. Both watches come on 22mm leather straps, with Croft having a thicker, distressed-looking strap and larger buckle to cope with the added thickness compared to the Fleuss. Although these leather straps do complement the look of these watches and are labeled as waterproof, if you plan on taking these into water, I would put them on rubber first. In conclusion, both these watches offer something that is very popular these days, a vintage-inspired diver's watch, with Fleuss taking its cues from Blancpain 50 Fathoms, while Croft looks more like a mix of Rolex and Panerai. Fleuss is a better executed watch. It has better finishing, a better movement, and thanks to its thinness, it wears better and more comfortably on the wrist. But despite all that, and the fact Croft is top-heavy and moves around on my wrist while I wear it, I reach out for it more often, and always with a smile on my face, because this dial and these hands just speak to me. So the mind says Fleuss, but the heart always chooses Croft. These are priced at $285 for the Fleuss and $320 for the Croft. But they are often on sale and the prices are close to $200, which I think makes them great value and more interesting looking alternatives to the legendary SKX 007 or the Citizen NY0040, which cost roughly the same. In case you don't want to chase a sale, you can always use a code WatchGeek20 that will give you an additional 20% discount whenever you shop for these. Well, this completes this week's review, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and found it useful. If you did, please like and subscribe by pressing this button right here, and until the next video, bye.